I'm Robin Lundberg, joined now by former Villanova coach Jay Wright, who has partnered with Great Clips on a March Madness rights and wrongs sweepstake. Somebody's going to get a trip to the 2025 men's or women's Final Four as a result of this, and definitely want to get into that, Coach. Now, when you're talking about the right approach going into March Madness, what would be your advice for, let's say your former team Villanova, who is close to the bubble right now?
Well, for those teams right now, you've got to focus on one game at a time. You cannot get caught up in trying to figure out, and everyone around you is saying to you, if St. John's wins this game, and if Seton Hall loses that game, it's coming at you from everywhere. And it's a cool thing, right? Because that's what makes everyone love March Madness. Because March Madness isn't just the NCAA tournament. It's this time. It's the time of year when teams are preparing to try to get to the tournament, right? So you've got to stay focused on your next game. It's easy to say, Robin, but it's really hard to do.
You mentioned St. John's. How would you assess the job that Rick Pitino has done there? There's been a lot of headlines around that, obviously.
Amazing job. I come from the era before the transfer portal was just getting going when I started. And we really benefited from having guys in our program 3 and 4 years. Probably no one benefited more than we did because we had guys that stayed. We didn't bring in many transfers, hardly any, and we didn't lose any guys. To see Rick bring all these guys in 1 year, none of them having been together, and hardly any of them even have been at St. John's, and put this team together, have them playing at the level they are. It's why he's a Hall of Fame coach. It's why he's one of the greatest of all time. It's impressive. Whether they make the tournament or not, it's really impressive.
Speaking of impressive, we were talking before we started, and you said it's an honor whenever your former players call you coach, but you got a lot of former players in a high-profile situation in New York right now. Obviously, a bunch of former Villanova players on the Knicks, Mikal Bridges on the Nets. When you look back historically, where do you think that Villanova team should rank in the annals of history?
Well, it's really funny because I think about this when I think about this UConn team right now. Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart, they were on the 16 team, and they argue, but Ryan Arcidiacono and Daniel Chefo kind of were the leaders on that team. But those guys were also on the 18 national championship team, and they argue with each other who's the better team. When I'm saying, like, yo, God, you were on both teams. How can you do that? But the younger guys will say the 18 team was better because they weren't the leaders on that team. And it's pretty cool to have, you got Kyle Lowry now playing for the 76ers too, which it keeps everybody close. He'll argue that his Final Eight team was better than them. They just happened to run into Florida. So they all have an ego about their own teams.
Brooklyn Nets are, looking for a coach this summer. Obviously, I saw you say you're done with coaching, but did you or have you ever thought about, what it would have been like in the NBA?
I definitely did. There were a couple times during my career, and probably the time I came closest to when Ed Stefanski, who was a good friend of mine, is now with the Pistons, but as an advisor, but he was the president and general manager of the 76ers. He was my neighbor, friend, and we had just come off, I think, a Sweet 16 or Final Eight run, and I was thinking at the time, like, have we done everything we can do at Villanova? Is it someone else's turn? So I did think about it, and then there were other times when friends, so that was the closest, but there were other times towards the end where, friends would call that were general managers or presidents, and I would think about it for a little bit, but I was always thinking, if I go to the NBA, probably going to get fired. So if I got fired, what would I want to do? Well, I'd probably want to come back and coach Villanova. But you can't do that. Like, once you give it up, you can't come back and take it back. So I never really wanted to leave Villanova.
Now, the Great Clips campaign is men's or women's Final Four, and obviously Caitlin Clark has put the women in another stratosphere in a sense. Like, I saw some of the games are outrating the men's games. What would you say? How would you describe her impact on the sport?
I think when you, in any sport, when you recognize a special talent, and then that special talent has some charisma and and a connection, it takes it to another level. You know, you think of Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I even, I grew up watching Pete Maravich, and as great a player as he was, he had like the floppy hair and the floppy. He had a look. He had a thing about him, and I think Caitlin's got that game. I think she's got that connection with the fans. She's got some juice to her game. Like, she's not just a scorer. She's a great passer. She's a winner. She hits clutch shots. I think she's really kind of mesmerized basketball people. I've heard more men that I know don't watch men's college basketball because they don't even ask me about it. But they'll ask me about Caitlin Clark, and they watched her game when she broke the record. So I think it's great for basketball in general, obviously great for women's basketball.
All right, tell us, Coach, about what you're doing with the rights and wrongs sweepstakes along with Great Clips.
Well, it's pretty cool because, number one, I got a good haircut. I hope it looks good. I like it. I get great haircuts from Great Clips. But what we're doing is we're trying to educate people that, hey, there's a right and wrong way to prepare for the tournament. The first thing you got to do is you got to get cleaned up. You got to get a great haircut at Great Clips, and you got to be fresh starting the tournament. And then second thing you got to do is you got to enter the Great Clips sweepstakes. Just go to your mobile app, and you can sign up right there to win 2 free tickets to next year's Final Four, all expenses paid. You can go to the men's or the women's tournament, your choice, whichever you want. So that's the right way. But don't do anything stupid like, like get upset when your team gets beat, cut your bangs, or have your friend shave your head or something at halftime thinking you're not going to miss the game. Don't do anything dumb like that. Do the right thing, get cleaned up, get a good cut, sign up for the Great Clip sweepstakes so you can go to next year's Final Four. That's the right way. So we've had fun doing that.
No doubt. Coach, appreciate the time. Thank you.